Hi, I'm Roberta. I'm a resident of Martin County, Florida, and I was born in Florida, born and raised. I'm one of those rare natives. They say they don't exist, but here I am. I'm an advocate, a strong advocate for medical aid in dying. I'd like to share with you my mother's end of life experience and how I came to be so passionate about the right to self-determination at the end of life for each of us. It was December 30th of 2015 that my mother received her diagnosis. Now, this is a woman who you can see from her portrait behind me that she was quite beautiful when she was young, but she was quite beautiful at age 80 as well when she was diagnosed. Fit, exercised 5 days a week, would walk, would go to Silver Sneakers regularly, never missed. She was healthy, and other than a Synthroid for her thyroid, wasn't on any medications. She just didn't need them. Very careful with her health and eating healthy and being socially involved. She was very involved in her church, a really faithful Christian woman. She had friends in the neighborhood. They would have dinners and teas and make cookies for each other. And part of her faith service to others is she's a wonderful cook, my mom. And so she would always sign up to make meals for those who were unwell. When she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, at that time it was quite advanced because unfortunately ovarian cancer is one of the silent killers. We tend to have no symptoms or very vague symptoms, if any, until it's quite progressed. When my mother learned of her ovarian cancer, she was determined to fight it. Don't think she was aware of the fact that it's generally terminal no matter what is done. But I think that her decision to fight it was partly for me and my sister. I think all of us were just in shock because she was so healthy up until that day. And I think she realized that we needed a chance to just all come to terms with it. How did her life change? I mentioned surgeries and chemotherapy, and she did have a period of remission, which was wonderful. But unfortunately, the cancer recurred shortly thereafter. And even though she did do a secondary treatment approach with her fabulous doctor, to whom I'm forever grateful, we knew that it was a matter of time. And eventually, on June 8th of 2018, having started her treatment in earnest around January of 2016, so 2.5 years later, my sister and I accompanied her to her oncology visit, as we always did. And I'll never forget, she said to the doctor how grateful she is for him and that she'd been thinking a lot and had made a decision. She appreciated all he had done for her, but she wasn't going to pursue any further treatment. As I said, my mother was a very faithful woman, and I'm comforted by the fact that her faith gave her great comfort and gave her strength and confidence about her end of life. However, on June 8th, when she made that decision and then apologized to my sister and me for it, she was enrolled in hospice, and hospice was very prompt. In fact, they came to her house that evening. I had moved in with her to care for her, and my sister and I were her full-time caregivers for those years. Thank goodness she had done the intake for hospice, because that night her pain escalated to what had become an occasional but painful episodes here and there to an unbearable agony that found no relief. Hospice, I called them. They told me I could give her Roxanol, the morphine that goes under the tongue, the sublingual morphine, works quickly, and nothing could alleviate her pain. And so it was all night long, every hour calling hospice and them saying, okay, give her another small amount, and they would tell me exactly what to do. Eventually, this cancer resulted in many miseries that we had not expected as lay people. Beyond this extreme abdominal pain, there were bowel obstructions, which cause uncontrollable vomiting, and the misery that goes with just unrelenting abdominal pain and unrelenting vomiting and the deterioration physically, loss of just strength and all the things that go along with it, and come to find that there is not enough morphine, methadone, or any other medics for the nausea or anything else that's strong enough to treat this. And the hospice nurse leveled with me. I asked her, look, I'm my mom's medical proxy and I am responsible for her well-being, and I need to understand what's going on here. So privately we spoke, and she shocked me. I was terrified, honestly. When she leveled with me just outside my mom's front door on the porch, she said, Roberta, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry, but we won't be able to make your mom comfortable. You understand that? No, I do not understand that. That's why we have hospice here and morphine and medications. And she said, there are some things that we really can't adequately treat. We won't be able to make her comfortable, but we'll take the edge off and we'll do our very best for her. No blame to hospice there. I just simply didn't know better. And I bet a lot of people out there listening to this story didn't know this either. Eventually, my mom was so absolutely in agony and just tormented by these symptoms. The hospice nurse, in her grace and compassion and her medical wisdom, said, we're going to offer to transport your mom to our own beautiful facility here in Florida, where we can put her on a morphine pump, which will give her intravenous pain relief and other symptom relief. And we'll only have to keep her there as long as it takes to titrate the right dose for her and make sure she's stable. And then we'll let her come back home, because it really was important to my mom that she be in her home for her very last days. We brought her to this facility by ambulance. I'll never forget sitting in the back with her as we rode along, and my sister followed in her car. And at one point, my mom just got very peaceful and still and very thoughtful. And I could see her looking out that back ambulance window as the sun was setting. And I think that she was probably praying. She became peaceful. We arrived there, and I'm very pained to say that no matter what they did, and they tried everything, there was nothing that could make her comfortable. And she cried out. She had terminal agitation. It was awful, with the arms lifting up and trying to get out of bed, and we had to break her fall several times. My sister and I slept there every night. We decorated her room to make it joyful there, and we just stayed by her side, and we just protected her from unnecessary measures as we deemed appropriate. And yet she was in agony. And every day, I'd ask the medical director, and I'd call other doctors that I knew from my profession. I'm a biomedical engineer. And I even called Tallahassee, the state of Florida's hospice foundation, the government foundation, and just seeking relief for her. How could she not be made comfortable? She had everything in order: a DNR, a living will. She'd even completed a document called the 5 Wishes, which specifically stated that she wanted palliative sedation in the event that her pain could not be controlled. And yet, this wasn't made available to her. Ultimately, my mom just stopped eating and drinking. She implemented VSED as her last act of agency. And again, a surprise that I never expected. A terrible surprise. She lived for a couple of weeks after she stopped taking any water and food. No water. Food, I've heard people can live for a while without food, but water, I always learned in school, it's 3 days or something. My mom was alive and suffering for a couple of weeks. And although I know she had her faith, I also heard her cry out. And I did everything I could, and I feel that I failed her. I didn't protect her. That was the one thing she said to me. I'm the older, and she said, Bobby, there's just one thing. She called me Bobby. There's just one I ask of you, no more pain. I'm not afraid to die. I know where I'm going, but please, no more pain. And I promise to do my best. I guess I didn't realize how complicated that could be. Ultimately, she did become unconscious, and thankfully, because then she wasn't suffering. But my sister and I, while we waited for her otherwise strong, healthy body to give out, which took us a long time, like I said, it was a 2-week vigil, my mother literally decomposed in her bed right in front of us. Did you know that could happen? I had no idea. Apparently, this is not that unusual. My mother made sure that her wishes were documented and known. She used all legal tools at her disposal to relieve her pain and suffering. But medical aid in dying was not among them because it's not legal in Florida, not then, not yet. The very last day when she did die, I had my hands on her face and I was telling her how much I love her and thanking her for all she had given for me and my sister. The medical director came to be with us after she was pronounced dead, deceased. The medical director with whom I'd met and begged for any kind of relief, but who couldn't give it even though she wished she could. She said to me, Roberta, one day, I expect I'll be watching the government channel and I'll see you. I'll see you there, talking to our legislators, telling your mother's story and fighting for people to have these rights. She, as a physician, a hospice physician, knows that not all deaths, not all patients can be made comfortable at end of life. And she believed medical aid in dying is an important tool among the other tools we have in our toolkit in Florida for patients when their suffering cannot be relieved. And I thanked her for giving my grief a focus at that point, that I could make a difference. She said, never mind, I'm not going to have to watch this on television. Do you know why? I said, why, doctor? She said, because I'll be standing beside you, speaking to the Florida legislature and validating your mother's story and the story of so many other patients who suffer needlessly because we don't have this legal right. Thank you for listening. I hope you'll support medical aid in dying for the state of Florida.